I'm Ruth Medd, the Executive Chair of Women on Boards, and welcome to my fortnightly review of interesting vacancies on the WOB Australia Jobs Board. I hope you find this a bit entertaining. I try to keep it topical and interesting for you all. Okay, this is the vacancies for the week of the 28th of September. And this week I thought I'd do something slightly different. I'm going to do a geographic focus. So I'm going to focus on New Zealand vacancies and also Queensland. Now, don't stop listening because you're not from either of these two places, because states will on occasions, and also other countries, take people from outside their geographic location. But the aim of today is just to show the variety of things that are available to people who are in fact located in those areas. But first up, I should just mention that the APRA, that's the Australian Health Practitioners Regulatory Agency, has begun its annual recruitment campaign. The first of the vacancies are on the website, and there'll be 2 more sets before November. They're great government boards to join. They pay modestly well, and great experience and good support for the board members. So give that a look on the Australian website. Okay, back to New Zealand and Queensland. I've got, I think, 4 vacancies from New Zealand, which cover local government, the equivalent of native title in New Zealand, and not-for-profits. So first up, New Zealand, Tourism Central Otago, Destination Advisory Board. Closes on the 6th of October, and that's all about tourism in Central Otago, believe it or not, which is where I didn't go for my wine tour because it got cancelled, but that's another matter. So this body is all about improving Central Otago as a tourism destination. And they are looking for lobbying and advocacy, reputation management, business development, and hospitality and tourism. Boards like this, it helps to know a bit about hospitality and tourism. And that is part of the Tourism Central Otago, is a department of the Central Otago District Council. So it's sort of local government, but sort of semi-autonomous. And as with all the boards I'm talking about today, it does pay. Okay, a couple of New Zealand government boards. These are the traditional sort of regulatory bodies. The first up is 27979, the Electrical Workers Registration Board of New Zealand. Closes on the 14th of October, and it's all about ensuring the competence of electrical workers, which I guess to me means electricians and the variants thereof. They're looking for commercial law and also a knowledge of building and trades. Pretty standard sort of regulatory body. And the second of these is 27978, Building Practitioners Board for New Zealand. Once again, a government board, once again pays. And this is the regulation of licensed building providers. So no dodgy apartment blocks that fall down like we have in Sydney from time to time. Not in New Zealand, it would seem, hopefully. And they're looking for communications, stakeholder engagement, and then an understanding of architecture and also building and trades. So that's 2 New Zealand government boards. And finally, 27835, Negati Wau Assets Trust, New Zealand. This is an organisation that is the recipient of the accumulated rentals from the Central North Island's Forests Land Collective Settlement Act 2008. So you New Zealanders will know what that means, I hope. And they, being a trust company, are looking for audit, compliance, financial oversight, governance, and risk management. Fairly standard set of skills that you need when you're administering money on behalf of others. That closes on the 12th of October. That could be very interesting also. So that's 4 New Zealand boards. So if you're New Zealand based or have New Zealand origins or are just generally interested, have a look at those and see if you want to put in an application. Okay, Queensland. Queensland gets quite a number of postings on our jobs board, and I don't often talk about them. So this is your chance, Queensland. Here we go. First up, 27989, the Queensland Alliance for Mental Health. This closes on the 10th of October. And this is a paid not-for-profit. And on this occasion, they're looking for a company secretary. Now, there are lots of vacancies for company secretaries on our boards, and they're increasing in number. Those of you who don't know, company secretaries are very akin to being a board member. You've got many of the same responsibilities and liabilities, and a really interesting role. And in my view, it's important that company secretaries are properly supported, and payment is one way of doing this. And not surprisingly, they're looking for somebody who's got company secretarial skills, which is fairly obvious. That's a not-for-profit and it pays. Okay. Next up, 27987. Jabiru Community, Youth and Children's Services in Queensland. This is, surprisingly perhaps, a business-based provider of outside school hours care. This is a really important sector in the education system for those of us who, you know, work past 3 o'clock in the afternoon and need our children to go to after school care. This is once again a paid role, and they're looking for somebody who knows something about community education and training. I would have thought also they might be looking for people who have an understanding of the sector and the policy surrounding it and all that sort of stuff, and some sort of connection to the local community. But they say community education and also education and training. That closes in October also. Next up, 27983, Rural Solutions Queensland. Closes on the 14th of October and once again is paid. This is an organisation providing services to support the sustainability of rural and small businesses and their communities. Very important, particularly in Queensland, of course, which is very distributed. These organisations typically, where it says it's a not-for-profit, are usually funded in part by government or local councils or whatever, and they basically provide, you know, advice and guidance to people in regional communities. Interesting. It's nice if you know something about regional communities, but it's also nice if you know something about financial counselling. So think about that one. And they in particular are looking for the skills in areas of financial counselling, stakeholder engagement, governance, agriculture and strategic planning. So that's that one. And finally for Queensland, we've got 27937. This is a private company. Queensland is blessed with lots and lots of private companies, a reasonable number of which seem to appear on our jobs website. This is New Crush Group, and this vacancy is being filled via Directors Australia, who are good supporters of WOB. And it closes on the 7th of October. And New Crush is part of the diversified group of Newman companies. Now that might mean something to you Queenslanders. And they're looking for skills in mining, engineering, governance, infrastructure, advanced manufacturing and materials. So they've got a fairly broad remit, this company. So have a look at them. Private companies are very interesting, and often they do lots of different things, I've noticed, because you start your private company and then you decide you'll do something a little different. It's a bit like Charlie's Chocolates as a sort of homegrown example, my being the chair, of course, so I declare my interest. But we make chocolate. But we're now thinking about, well, should we start growing and selling cocoa trees to help more people grow cocoa in the local area? So you end up with different sort of segments of your business. So that sounds to me a bit like New Crush Group. So there you are, 4 companies in Queensland, 4 in New Zealand, and don't forget APRA. And my tip for this week, my continuing campaign to want more not-for-profits to pay their directors, because I think that's fair, equitable, and just return for efforts in certain circumstances, notably not-for-profits that run businesses. So if you're on a not-for-profit, as a number of the WOB members I talk to say, they're starting to ask the question at board meetings, why don't we consider paying our directors? Is it appropriate to pay our directors? Is that something that our members and supporters would be comfortable with? Are we suffering from a skills shortage when we try to attract new directors? Those sorts of issues. So there we go. That's the vacancies for the 28th of September. Please take a look at the jobs board and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much for listening.